welcome to this dead channel. I'm your host Pan, and today I'm taking a break from real-life responsibilities to show you all something really cool. And what I'm bringing you today is a video about my game. Now, I'm going to be splitting this video up into two parts. First, I'll be talking about how this came to be and sort of just what my whole process was, and if you think that's too boring, you can just go ahead to the second part, which will just be showing it off and providing a download link so you can try it out for yourself. So use those timestamps to your advantage, and without further ado, let's get started. So, a bit under a year ago, in my first university programming course, I was tasked with making a simple Unity game. That mini project is what you can see behind me here. The concept is pretty basic. You control a character that can walk around, and they can shoot arrows at 3 different speeds. The idea was a sort of action puzzle mix, so my sample level included a couple timing puzzles and some simple enemies. But obviously you can tell this isn't really a full game, and since I had some time on my hands this summer, I decided to try to revamp it and just see what I could come up with. Now, something about designing several levels with interesting puzzles and increasingly difficult enemies doesn't sound very doable in a month, so instead I'm gonna hyper-focus on just the combat of this game, and I'm gonna try to make it as good as possible. To have good combat, I feel like the most important step is more depth, so I'm gonna need some cool abilities and some new enemies. Next, we should probably also think about the game format. For that, I'm picking this sort of wave-based PvE arena type thing. Basically, we're just making 5 waves of progressively harder enemies, and we're gonna unlock abilities as the player beats waves. Next, we're also gonna need to add just a bit more feedback and general visual spice to the whole game. Okay, this should be an okay starting point, so let's get started on making this and let's see where we're at. I started by creating some sprites. These are going to be used as enemy spawn points and just general arena decoration. I then got to work on updating my old player code and setting up some basic wave spawning logic. I also created 2 new enemies. This shield rat, whose shield needs to be destroyed with the slowest arrow from the player, and a gun rat, who you'll never guess what does. So let's get all this bunch together and see how it looks. This version actually also has some of the ability code already. Okay, so as you can tell, it's still pretty rough around the edges. Next, we'll set up a collision matrix, and we'll take care of visual feedback for things like when you hit enemies and when you use your abilities. One thing I had failed to consider was the amount of UI sprites I would have to make. And I'm kind of starting to run out of time, so let's just do a montage, and I guess we'll see how close to a finished product I can get. Okay, so now we have damage text, ability animations, a slightly animated UI, a pause function, wave information, even the bow moves. And also, you now select a damage ability at wave 2, a movement ability at wave 4, and you get the other 2 abilities if you clear all waves and start the endless mode. I'm also implementing a score system, but that isn't quite ready yet. Which brings me to the point that there's still a lot to fix. Text gets flipped, rats act weird, this arena is still undecorated, and I have this unused boss enemy that I really want to fit in. So, In the effort of saving time, I'll make these fixes without yapping anymore, and you'll just get to see the final product in part 2, aka right now. Now please, allow me to present Rat Starminator! Alright, listen, if you're expecting something high quality, you probably shouldn't have come to the channel with less than 100 subs. Anyways, the game is a brief 5-wave combat challenge designed to teach you the basics of combat, followed by an endless mode where you try to accumulate as many points as possible. You fight armed with only a bow and a couple abilities, and you wield 3 different types of arrows: green, yellow, and red. My goal was to give you a reason to use all of these, so I designed a special enemy for each of them. Shield enemies, who you need to get up close with so you can break their shields with your slow arrows. Gun enemies, who like to stay further away, forcing you to use your fast arrows to hit them. And finally, a boss, who can be tricky to hit unless you stun him. In waves 2 and 4, you get a choice of a damage and a movement ability respectively. I wanted to give you some time to get used to these abilities, so you don't unlock the last 2 abilities until you start the Endless mode. The movement abilities let you dash and phase through enemies, while damage comes in the form of a wave shot and a temporary double shot toggle. As you might have noticed, I've only talked about combat related stuff, and that's because, as I just want to reiterate from part 1, that's literally all there is to this game. I wanted to focus 100% on just making something that was mechanically fun to play, leaving a bunch of other important aspects of game design behind. To further this goal of fun, I made sure to kindly ask some friends for feedback, and you can thank them for all of these improvements. So yeah, I think I've yapped on for just about long enough now, so if you think the game seems interesting, you can head over to the itch page and check it out, or if you want to check out my code and learn from my mistakes, you can check out the full project folder on my GitHub. Bye for now!